Hello, this is Dr. Indrajit Bose. I should be your course coordinator for this session. Welcome to the first year diploma course of Guru Nanak Institute of Technology. This paper is entitled Communicative English, and in the course of the lectures in this paper, we are exploring the different forms, modes, and genres of interpersonal communication, both spoken and written in English, that prevails in the workplace world. I think all of you are aware that once you pass out of this course, you should be joining the industry, and there you will have to interact with others, that is, customers, clients, vendors, other people, higher officials, by writing to them in English and also speaking and interacting in English in various situations in your workplace world. So, to enable you to function competently in that environment, we have got this paper where we are trying to impart to you various skills which are requisite for this kind of functional competence in English. Now, this lecture is a part of the first unit where we are talking about reading comprehension, and it is based on answering of MCQ and short answer type questions. Now, of course, this is related to our reading comprehension skills and reading strategies. Now, I have talked about reading skills and strategies. Now, when we are concerned with reading comprehension or with reading skills, then you need to keep in mind that from the passages, there can be possibly different kinds of questions that are set. Now, what are these questions likely to be like, and what do they aim to test? The basic aim of the reading comprehension passage is to test the candidate's knowledge and understanding of words and to guess the meaning of words in context. In other words, the kind of vocabulary that is employed by the passage. So, the student should be able to read that material in English and make sense of the contents as far as he or she is able to. So, to test this understanding and knowledge, there are different kinds of questions which are set. Some questions are of the MCQ type, or they are objective type of questions, which are multiple choice based. Or in other words, you have to do basically a gap fill, information gap fill, or a knowledge gap fill, and there are different choices which are given to you to make it easier for you to answer the questions. Again, other type of questions are short answer type questions, in which you are being tested on your ability to construct sentences and to express the meaning of certain ideas in the passage in your own words by constructing a few sentences and paragraphs. So the answers are not very long, but they do test your writing skills, especially the ability to construct sentences which are grammatically correct, using appropriate vocabulary, punctuation, and grammar. So these are mostly the kind of sentences. They can also be longish questions which require you to write longer answers, but mostly these are the two kinds of questions: short answer type or objective type of questions. So obviously answering these questions also requires certain strategies on the part of candidates. So I shall be discussing these kinds of questions, or rather these two types of questions, and the answering strategies which we have to perfect as candidates. Let us explore. Now, the MCQ questions, or the multiple choice type of questions. The multiple choice type questions can also focus on different things. They can be based on vocabulary, for instance. MCQ type questions, which are vocabulary based, tend to test the candidate's knowledge of the vocabulary contained in the passage and the ability to infer meaning from the context. So what are these types of questions? These questions can be like, pick out the word or phrase. You are required to read the passage and to single out the word or phrase, the meaning of which is given in italics. So find out the phrase which matches the word in the passage. So you have to know the meaning of the word in order to match the word and the meaning. Again, tick the meaning of the word. So maybe the meanings of the words are given. You have to tick the meaning of the word from the ones that are given. Again, a matching of the word with the meaning is called for. Find the word in italics and circle the meaning. Again, this is also another type of matching of word and meaning. Fill in with the suitable word. This may not be exercise which is related to meaning, but it may be related with the appropriate use of words or some other usage. So again, it's a kind of information gap fill with the suitable word. Now match the word and the meaning. Again, this is something like the first three. Now, which word in the text means the same as this one? Again, the word and its synonym. Suggest the opposite of the words in bold or italics. So again, this is again something related to antonyms. So many of the MCQs are vocabulary based, and many of them are related to matching of the word with its meanings or its synonyms or antonyms. Okay. Again, some other types of MCQs can be content or information based. Like they are based on the reading content of the passage. Like pick the relevant information, the date, name, place, etc. So many information details might be contained in the passage. So basically we have to pick out the relevant information or select that information. So in other words, it would require that you scan the passage carefully when you are reading it in order to pick out the relevant details. Again, a table or chart or matrix fill. So we might need to fill in a table or chart with the relevant words or a matrix and fill it up, or filling it on a map. Like there might be a map where we need to fill in by pointing out different places or other kinds of important details on the map. Again, a true or false clause. Like again, you have certain sentences dealing with the information contained in the passage, so you have to single out whether these sentences or statements are true or false. Again, there can be a multiple choice clause, like picking out the correct options. Again, this is it can be used for inferential meaning or to guess the meaning from the content, or a gap fill, which is inferential, and a matrix or match the statements in table or chart, which again may be based on the content or it might be inferential. So the candidates in the comprehension passage are not only expected to understand the meaning of the words and the meaning in context, but also guess the other details which might be inferred at or which might be inferred from the words in the passage, and also local as well as global comprehension or general world knowledge also would be required to be put into place. So these are some of the types of questions which are based on multiple choice type of questions or MCQs. Now, what about the other type of questions or the short answer type? Okay, now the short answer type questions are questions which require a little bit more of writing compared to the MCQ. Obviously, in the MCQs, you do not have to write anything. You just talk about the answer. You pinpoint the answer. Now, you can have the short answer type questions where you have to express a few of the ideas contained in the passage in a few short sentences. to express yourself in writing, in other words. Okay, now some of them, these question types may be content based or very simply based on the content contained in the passage. Like for example, in this passage, let me just read out the passage and the questions for you first. This is the passage I'm reading. At the close of the summer vacation, Sheila spent a day at the farm of her uncle in Gondgram. Her parents drove her there by car early in the morning. She loved the farm and all its animals and birds. There were lots of cows. She watched the milking and the butter making process. The hens had laid lots of eggs, and these were being packed in crates for the market. There were also goats and ducks. She had a lovely day roaming around, chatting with her uncle and aunt, and seeing the livestock. Her parents picked her up in the evening. Okay, very simple. This is Sheila's day out at the farm. So that's what the passage is about. Now we have a number of questions based on this passage. Let me read the questions now. What is the main idea in the passage? What does the author talk about? Describe the day that Sheila spent at the farm. Which animals are described? What happens at the end of the day? Okay, so you have to answer in 1 or 2 lines. The main idea in the passage. To answer the first question is obviously, it is the relation of, or it's a narration of a single day at the close of the summer vacation when Sheila spent a day at the farm of her uncle and aunt, or she spent a happy day at the farm. What does the author talk about? The author talks about a happy day spent at the farm by Sheila at the close of the summer vacation. Describe the day that Sheila spent at the farm. When you have to describe all the things that she did. She was dropped by her parents at the farm, and she loves it, and all the animals and birds. She watches the cows and the milking and butter making. She also sees the hens and the eggs being packed in crates, and she looks at the goats and ducks also. She roams around having an interesting time with her uncle and aunt and seeing the livestock, and she's picked up by her parents at the evening. Now, which animals described? Obviously, we have here the cows, we have the goats and ducks, and the hens, which are also described. And what happens at the end of the day? Obviously, at the end of the day, when she finishes her visit, her parents come by car and pick her up to take her back to the city. So these are the short answer type questions, and notice that you do not have to write a lot of things for these short answers, but the answers have to be written because they need to express certain ideas in the text, and they cannot be expressed in a single word or so, like in the MCQ type questions. Okay, the next one. Okay, now certain answering strategies or how to answer these questions. Now read the questions carefully first and focus on what the questions want. Now, what exactly are the questions asking for? So please focus on the content very, very carefully. Look at the information contained in the passage and see what kind of information is there so that we may have to reproduce that. Then focus on the vocabulary in the passage, the grammatical items contained over there, and then read and reread the passage to locate the information and underline the passage if required. And then answer the questions and follow the question instructions carefully. So whatever you are asked to do by the questions, please do that. Now, basically then, what will be the technique of our tackling or handling these kind of questions? Well, first, give the passage or original passage a thorough reading and keep your eyes skinned for all the small bits of information. Sometimes they are really inconspicuous, which might be contained in the passage. So scan the passage very carefully. First, skim the passage to get the overall gist of what the passage is about so that you can express it in words. And then after that, please scan the passage very carefully to get the specific information related to certain items which might be questioned at. So there might be bits of vocabulary, grammar, or other things which you are asked questions about. So read the passage very carefully to focus on these things. Then you reread and locate the specific information about which you are questioned. So you read the passage, go back to the questions, read the questions, and again go back to the passage, or vice versa. So questions, passage, again questions, or passage, questions, again passage. Now, underline or mark out in the passage the relevant areas where you are asked questions about. So they will help you to narrow down your choices about the answers, and you can answer the questions fast, because obviously time is a very important factor, or it plays a very important role as far as these MCQs are concerned. Many of them are often time-bound exercises. So unless you finish with the requisite time, you will be in problems. So read the instructions carefully regarding answering questions and solve the questions very carefully. These are some of the ways of answering these questions. Now, what about the doing of MCQs? Now, when you are doing MCQs, it is best not to try any kind of guesswork. If you don't know the answer to the question, leave it. Don't try to solve it by guesswork. Neither should you go very fast or try to hurry when you are solving the MCQs, because sometimes it might happen that you know the answers to the MCQs, so you are in a jubilant mood as you start the exam or you start answering the paper, and then you go so fast that you miss out some points in the questions. And if you do that, it's really a pity, because it will just unnecessarily take away your marks. So don't hurry. Try to go a little slow. Don't go very slow, but don't go uh, very fast either. Try to follow a moderate pace and look at the questions very carefully. Read the questions carefully and try to identify the distractors in the MCQs very carefully first before you underline the correct options. So which are the distractors? So there might be 4 options in a question. Now 3 of them might be distractors, or 2 of them might be distractors. So identify the distractors first and eliminate them, eliminate from them from the consideration at the very first chance. Now, once you have eliminated the distractors, the remaining ones that you have are likely to be the right answers to the question. So eliminate the distractors first and then focus on the correct answer. Then answer the questions right clearly and legibly. So once you are answering the MCQs, you might use a pen or pencil to select your options. So whatever it is, don't do them with a pencil and then ink it over with a pen, or mark over more than once with a pen or pencil. No, that will make it untidy and difficult to read. So if they are too crossed over or marked, then the examiner might eliminate your answer altogether, or they might cancel your answer. So don't overwrite. Write clearly, write legibly, and keep your work clean and neat as far as possible. One option should be selected only once, and don't choose other options after that, so that your examiner is confused about which is your correct answer. And don't vacillate between different options or try out guesswork, or use any way of cancelling out one answer and choosing another one. So please be careful about answering the questions, and don't write anything else on the paper, like by way of points or notes. You can do them on a separate page in rough work, but don't write anything else on the paper over here. So these are a few pointers to keep in mind regarding the doing of the MCQ type of questions. Now, what about the success, the factors for success in MCQs? Now, MCQs are one of the best ways of getting answers to questions fast. They can be wide-ranging in choice, and there can be a large number of MCQs which can be set on a specific passage. So though they may not be very difficult to solve in all cases, but the number, the large number, is really forbidding in some cases. And then, the examinees themselves are spoiled for choice, or they get confused because there are so many MCQs. So therefore, you have to follow certain techniques for being careful and obviously for being successful in an exam involving a lot of MCQs. So let us see what these techniques might be. Now, there are certain techniques, first and foremost, for managing the time effectively. Now, if you have 60 MCQs, for example, you cannot begin by solving them one after the other, because that will take or consume up a lot of your time at the beginning of your exam when your speed is a bit slow. Then obviously you tend to gather speed as you go along. Now, so therefore, to save the time, what you can do is to solve the easier MCQs first. Do the easier MCQs first, the ones which you are confident about, and save the difficult ones for later. So you might divide up the time between the different questions that you have in your paper. So obviously, even if the question itself is not known to you, the time allotted for that question is. So you have to prepare yourself for answering the question accordingly. So do the easy ones first and save the difficult ones for later, and forge ahead. Um, Also check out whether you are missing anything. Total number of questions, time limit for each question. So time for each question that you have in your hand is so much, say 1 minute. So how much can you do it within 1 minute? Now, do not stretch your time for any question, however difficult or interesting it might be. So leave all that for the end. Leave the challenging ones for the end, when you have finished the rest of the paper and you are relatively free to tackle the difficult ones. So make a time limit for handling the questions, say 1 minute for each, and rigorously stick to the time limit. Don't deviate from the time limit at all. Don't deviate from the schedule at all, because that only will ensure that you will be able to do all the MCQ questions in time. Now, certain techniques for reading as well. Underline the keywords, the dates, and the facts. Scan the passage very, very carefully, and be observant about small details. So there are a lot of small details which are mentioned in the passage, and you have to be very, very careful about these small details. Okay, so read the passage carefully, underline all the keywords, the dates, facts, and other details, and scan it carefully, and be observant about various small details over there. So these are some of the techniques which we have to follow, particularly time management and careful reading when we are answering MCQ type questions. Now, the short answer type questions. Now, how do we answer these short answer type questions? And what are they in the first place? Well, I have already talked about them. Let me read a little more about them. Now, once we are going to answer the short questions, short answer type, so we have to do, basically we have to do something like this. We have to read the passage and then the questions, and then look for answers back in the passage. The answer finally will be given in the candidate's own words as far as possible. Now, this is a sample passage about penguins. I'm reading that together with the questions which have been set on this passage. Penguins are found in Arctic oceans. That is the popular belief. In fact, penguins are found in Antarctica, South America, South Africa, and Australia. People usually associate them with cold climates, picturing them as walking about on snow and ice, and slithering into icy pools. But they also live in warmer climates. There are 18 different species of penguins, and all have black bodies and white bellies. They cannot fly, but are expert swimmers and fish underwater. They usually congregate in large colonies to protect them from predators and to provide warmth. These are called penguin colonies. So this is a very interesting and small passage about penguins, which is available for short answer type questions. If we read the short answer type questions based on this passage. Question number 1. Where do the penguins live according to popular belief? Now the second question is, where are they actually found? And the third question, how do they look and how do they live? Okay, so in the first question, obviously we have to say a few lines like, according to popular belief, the penguin population is found in polar regions in Antarctica and so on, but in the Arctic regions. But this is not really true. Where are they actually found? They are found in the southern hemisphere, in South America, South Africa, Australia, and also Antarctica. Okay. Now, how do they look and how do they live? Well, they look uh, like they are dressed in black and white, and they are also very expert swimmers, and they can swim underwater to catch fish, and they usually congregate in large colonies on land to ward off attacks from predatory animals and to be warm themselves. So these are certain answers to the short answer type questions which are posed from paragraphs or from written text. Okay, so I'm reading out the answers now, which I have framed. Answer number 1. According to popular belief, penguins live in the Arctic region. In fact, however, this is not always true. Though they live in polar regions, they are also found in warmer climates. Warmer climates being South America, South Africa, and Australia. Parts of Australia. Now, penguins are the second question. Penguins are generally found in Antarctica, South America, South Africa, and Australia. Now, the third question. 18 different species of penguins are to be found. They all have black bodies and white bellies. Although they cannot fly, they are expert swimmers and usually fish underwater. They usually gather in large colonies for warmth and for gaining protection from other predators, and these colonies are known as penguin colonies. Okay, so far we have got satisfactory information from these short answer type questions, which are based on the passage. Okay, now we have a sample passage which is given about tourist spots. Let us read the passage first. Why do people want to travel to offbeat tourist spots and travel destinations? Is it only a thirst for adventure or something else? Perhaps they want to escape from the noise and bustle of city life in the first place. The pollution levels also of most of our overcrowded cities is alarmingly high. It leads to various illnesses all the year round, um, apart from patients with asthma and various respiratory disorders being affected. The clean air, the silent valleys, and the refreshing sunshine of a remote hill station bring almost instant relief by contrast. Or a windswept lonely island or a sheltered bay somewhere in the vicinity of the deep blue sea. So these are the kinds of places that people wish to travel to. A new kind of tourism is emerging out of this fascination with off-track or faraway destinations, rather away from the beaten track. Arranging for a comfortable stay in these places is rather a challenge sometimes. They do not generally have big hotels or guest houses, so homestays have emerged as really important. The concept is new, and the experience of a home life ambience, food, and hospitality is of added value. So, impelled by the attraction of the great outdoors and the prospect of a home away from home, tourists are increasingly opting for these little known travel spots. Okay, so what is the passage about? The passage is about people's fascination with little known travel destinations or travel destinations in remote places nowadays, which are not only far away from the cities and towns, but they are also away from the general tourist spots, which have a lot of crowd and bustle. So, what are the questions from this passage? Uh, yes. These are the questions. Why do people want to travel to remote travel spots? What is the attraction of these spots? What kinds of places are these? And what are homestays? What is their advantage? So why do people want to travel to remote travel spots? So the answer to this is people want to travel to remote tourist destinations to escape the bustle, crowds, and pollution of city life. Most of these places are secluded, full of natural beauty, and pollution free. Uh, okay, so basically, because of the seclusion and isolation of these places and lack of pollution, people are interested in visiting them. Okay, let's look at the second question now. What is the attraction of these spots? What kind of places are these? Okay, let us see the answer to this question. The answer to the second question, most of these places are in far off or remote locations. There are islands, seashores, and hill stations. All are beautiful and tranquil. The isolation is the great attraction of these tourist spots. What about the third one now? The third one is about homestays. I'm sorry. Yes, what are homestays? What is their advantage? The answer to the third question is homestays are people's houses offering staying facilities for tourists. Homely atmosphere and home-cooked food are the great attractions. So people are opting for homestays because they will get a homely atmosphere over there and home-cooked food as well. So it's a great advantage. Okay. Now, basically, mm, these questions, which are based on MCQ type and short answer type, are tests of reading and comprehension, and also of reading speed. So, how much can you assimilate out of that reading and reproduce that effectively in writing within a short span of time? So, reading speed is being tested, and also in writing, as I said, clarity, attention to detail, grammatical accuracy, and appropriate vocabulary. Now, the MCQ types are to be answered very carefully, and please remember a large segment of your questions will be of MCQ type. Uh, Careful and close reading and time management are all necessary for gaining success in MCQ type tests, which are extremely common nowadays. And for short answer types, the writing practice completes the preparation in all respects, so that is required for success. So the more you write for the short answer type questions, the more you practice in writing how to condense the information within a short line or two. That is what is required for the short answer type question. So the MCQs basically test your reading speed and comprehension and understanding. The MCQs test not only your reading speed and understanding, and sometimes your inferential skills as well, but they also tend to test your writing skills in brief as to how you are able to write on these subjects which are contained in the reading passages. So, in the course of this lecture, I think I have shed some light on how to answer the text-dependent questions, which are basically MCQs uh, and short answer type questions. Many of the MCQs are based on the information content contained in the passage. Many of them are vocabulary type questions. So, how we are going to read the passage, to skim and scan the passage in detail, this is very important for getting the MCQs right. And as far as the short answers are concerned to the short answer type questions, for them, again, a close reading of the passage and ability to condense the information briefly within a sentence or two That is also very, very important. Okay. Okay. So these are a few points that I wish to mention regarding the preparation for MCQ type and short answer type of questions. So I hope that you will be able to answer all the MCQ type questions which are posed in the reading comprehension passages by paying particular attention to the information contained in the passage and by reading the passage carefully, by skimming and scanning the passage in details before you answer the questions from it. If you are suffering from difficulties in answering the MCQs or you are getting confused, then you need to practice more with the MCQs. On the internet, you would find that as far as vocabulary is concerned, that there are different kinds of vocabulary tests, which are basically MCQ type or online tests which are available. So you can take the help of these tests in order to practice more with the MCQ type questions. So time yourself according to the test time and see whether you're able to answer the questions correctly within half an hour or 20 minutes or 40 minutes, whatever be the time for the test. And don't overshoot the time. The more you get used to the time, or you get used or acclimatized to the time limits set in the exams, you will be finding it more comfortable going with the MCQ type questions. So basically with the MCQ type questions, it's a question of practice, practice, practice. Okay, right. Okay. So that brings us to the end of this particular lecture on answering MCQs and short answer type questions from reading comprehension passages. With that, we have completed our installment on reading comprehension and its questions. So I will be back with more lectures on other units of the syllabus. But for me now, this is goodbye for now.